Hi, this is Andrew Divin reporting for KGBU-TV from the Chicago Botanic Garden.
I'm Jason. Trees are all around us in Chicago. A really good place to see many different kinds of trees is the Chicago Botanic Garden.
Hi, I'm Talia. Started in 1962, Chicago's Botanic Garden measures 156 hectares and has 24 different gardens, such as English walled garden, a rose garden, and a Japanese garden built in 3 separate islands.
Today we're going to start our visit by looking at the garden's Trees of Illinois collection. We're here with world-famous landscape architect Mr. Gary Topalian, who will be our guide.
What I was asked to do today by the Armenian School is to come out and have a talk with you about the trees in our area. We decided that the Mary McDonald Woods would be a good example to probably kind of educate you guys just very briefly and simply about our trees, what types of trees are found here and what they do, how important they are to us humans and the planet Earth and so forth. This was what the state of Illinois pretty much had about 100 years ago. This is what really took place in our lands. Well, population has grown. There's more bodies in the world, so which requires more clearing, more cutting, for more housing, so forth. So a lot of these areas or communities are slowly disappearing. This is a community that has not just plant material, but there's a lot of wildlife. So you see a lot of insects, birds, there's a lot of squirrels, there's a lot of butterflies and things that you see because of the plant material that attracts them. The squirrels will gather the nuts, butterflies come when the wildflowers all are in bloom, and the bees and all sorts of things get their foods and energies from these plants, okay? They take out a lot of the pollution from the air. They take in a lot of the carbon dioxide, which is in the air, a gas. And they use it in part of as the tree gets its food, and then it releases its oxygen for us to breathe, okay? We also use we cut down a lot of these trees, a lot of the oak trees, because we use it in our everyday lifestyle. You see it in furniture, you see it on your floorings, you see it in fences, all sorts of things, papers, products that we need every day. This is a red oak. These oak trees are great trees. They're big specimens. They're great. Their wood is great because it's strong. You see a lot of it in oak furniture. There's oak flooring. Okay. How we identify trees is we look at the leaf. We can look at the shape of the leaves, okay? There's different leaf structures or leaf shapes, and that's how you identify what type of tree this is. This is a red oak because you can see some of the very sharp edges on the leaves. This is called a council ring. This was used way back in the early 1900s. A landscape architect you may have heard of, I'm not sure, Jen Jensen, sort of had this encompassed in a lot of his design work. It was a signature of friendship. They would use these to congregate, just like what we are, storytelling. They would all have all sorts of fireside chats. There used to be maybe a fire pit in the middle. So they would all gather together and just have their story time together. This is a black walnut. Okay, so again, the great identifying factor of this tree is because it holds this big nut here. This is what comes from the tree. You can see it's the hard green shell, and what's actually is inside is what they'll process and what we'll turn around we can eat, which is the nut here, the walnut. This also, this gets crushed. And this is for a cleaning agent. So chemical yeah, so it's really interesting. What we're all sitting under, what you see here is a maple tree. This is a sugar maple. Obviously it's in its fall color, you can see. Here is what typically is the seedling. You can see it right here. This is called also like a maple key, what they term as a sumac. These are the seedlings you can see here. What kids like to pick off, they flow and they twirl like this and they call them helicopters, right? So these are all the seedlings in here. Well, this maple It's a sugar maple, and, and can be tapped for its sap. So typically what you guys pour on your pancakes or your French toast is the syrup. Well, that's where a lot of this maple syrup is made from. Another thing with maples is not just particular this one, there's a lot of variety of maple trees that you'll find when you're actually playing musical instruments. So a lot of your guitars, a lot of your violins, a lot of drums are made from some of the maple wood. The gardens, this is a shagbark hickory. Again, you can see the leaf, the textures of the leaf. Again, it's identified through, this is a whole leaflet, and then this is actually one leaf, I should say, on a petiole with all its leaflets. So it's a compound, which they call many leaves on one leaf. Again, a big key to identifying is look at the bark itself. It's like peeling. It's like shag. It's a bark coming off. So this was an easy way to identify this tree. We've been looking at a lot of deciduous trees, which means all the leaves will fall in the wintertime. Here you have a good line of a lot of evergreens, okay, which is the opposite. These evergreen trees keep their leaves, okay? So that's what's difference between an evergreen and deciduous, obviously. These will look like this all year round during the winter, okay? They'll have their new growth come spring. So they do their own foods. They remain green the way they are. They store their foods. They thrive through the cold seasons. And the reason they're really strong that way and they keep their leaves is because they can. Deciduous trees can't, their leaves drop because the winters get so cold. The leaves can't produce. It's the fuel for the tree. They can't produce their foods. But the evergreens work differently, okay? So you have a lot, this is a cedar tree. You have a lot of trees. You have the mugo pine, so there's a lot of shrub forms. You have a lot of these intermediate, so there's spruce, there's arborvitae, okay? Now, with the planting community, there's a lot of natural disasters. I mean, there's this, what's been called acid rain. What's happening is there's a lot of pollutants in the air. During rainfall, the rain is collecting all these pollutants, these gases in the raindrops, and it's bringing it down to the ground. Well, when there's so much acid rain or there's so much pollution in the air that it collects, it can kind of begin to affect a lot of the plant material because it gets into the soils and it disturbs all the nutrients in the soils. It's food, it's what the trees and plants want. So eventually, as it begins to destroy or break down matters in the soils, the trees and the plants can't get what they want and they eventually die off, okay? There's another natural cause, which is all you hear about and probably learning about in a lot of your schools now, is the greenhouse. And it's what all the gases that are being trapped in our atmosphere. The trees are good because they take in a lot of the gases, the carbon dioxide primarily. A lot of it is being trapped. Think of it as like a glass wall, because there's so much gases being produced from your smokestacks, from your factories, things that are being let into the air that a lot of the trees, because they're being cut down for use, there's a lot of it being reduced, a lot of the gases can't be taken out. So you're seeing a lot more warmer days, let's say, or the climate has been changing, and it begins to affect a lot of the plants because they need that cooler temperature to thrive, because they need to go through that seasonal change. So that's been slowly making effects on our plant communities as well. A lot of the salt that you see during winter times when they're cleaning the streets, a lot of the salts and things that are used to melt the snow and ice, eventually they will make their way into the grounds, into the soils, and a lot of that saltness that accumulates becomes too much. The elm trees, as you know, there was a big issue come up with the Dutch elm disease, which they've been really seeing in great extent all throughout the Midwest, maybe even out east, wherever elm trees are populated. There is a bark beetle which is getting into these trees, which is eating the insides of these trees. So that's what's affecting these trees. The emerald ash borer, another problem that attacks a lot of the ash trees. Same thing with the Dutch elm. It's another individual bug that's been attacking the tree. Again, it's eating the insides, it's burrowing, and the way they can tell is because they leave this pattern on their bark of their trees, and you can see all these lines that are zipping through the bark. And I just read an article recently in some of the forest preserves here in Chicago that there is an insect, which I think is the wasp, or some kind of a bee, that they're using, which would feed into these the emerald ash borer, and that would hopefully kind of control itself so that it can eliminate its population.
My name is Tom, and this is the Chicago Botanic Garden. Here we have garden scale model trains. These are all hobby market trains that people put in their yards. And all the buildings here are decorated with plant material like sticks and twigs and bits of mushroom and nutshells. These are places from all around the United States. We start at Seattle, we go through San Francisco, and then up the west coast to Hollywood, and then over farther in there's the middle of the country, there's South Dakota, there's Portland, Maine, there's the White House, and several sites along the east there. And then at the very end is Philadelphia.
The English walled garden. There's various gardens here. This is behind me or in front of me is the sunken garden. You can see where you just step right into a water feature. All along the base of the brick walls, which encloses the garden, you do find a herbaceous border of a lot of mix of annuals, perennials, and ground cover types of plants. This is the raised daisy garden, is what they call it. It's based on a quadrant. And what it is this typical style paths of the gravel paths with the quadrants broken up into various perennials, a lot of textures, colors, and foliage used with the central garden ornament. And you have a lot of the hedges and evergreens that act as the walls, extensions of the brick walls, create the spaces and enclosures.